Welcome to episode 5 of the Wannabe Investors Podcast. Today we have Viktor on the show. Viktor is an experienced house flipper and real estate coach, and he's actually the mentor to our co-host Patrick. Let's listen in.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Viktor. I'm in Gainesville, Florida. That's where I live currently. I'm primarily a fix and flipper, so I fix a house. So I buy a house, fix it up, sell it. I also teach people how to do the same. That's pretty much it. Mostly do it locally here in Gainesville and surrounding counties. And and then I do decent volume. It depends on who you ask. So I do anywhere from 20 to 40 per year. So last year did 30, and this year if I do 30 again, I'll be happy. So.
Has the market affected you at all?
We shifted a little bit, but I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. Like if it's a good house, it sells within a week or two, typically a week. It used to be like multiple offers and over asking. We still get that sometimes, but not every time like it used to be. But it's still good. Deals are still out there. So yeah.
You're getting one each week, aren't you?
A little less than that, but that's about right. Yeah.
And what's your background? What got you into flipping initially? How'd you end up there?
I actually didn't start in real estate. I only started real estate back in 2018, so it's been 4 or 5 years. Before that, so I went to college for bioengineering. I didn't finish. I dropped out. I got 2 years into it, and I realized it wasn't for me. But I really liked entrepreneurship. Like I was a part of the entrepreneur club in college. I was, always trying to start something. So I figured, let me take some time off of school and let me see if I can make this company thing, entrepreneur thing, happen. And lots of failures at first, and then eventually got into real estate and learned a lot and did really well. So that's pretty much it. So I didn't start with real estate. I should have. That was my goal from the beginning. I always thought I need to make money and then get into real estate. Make money and then get into real estate. Do X and then do Y. Then I realized what if I just do Y? And especially there's so many options for folks with no money or limited money. You can wholesale, or you can do this, or you can do creative, or you can, there's all these different options. And I didn't know that. I only knew the traditional stuff you got to put a down payment, you got to do this, you got to do that. And I never knew you could do other stuff.
And what about these failures that you had? What were those? So everybody can hear.
Everyone can know about them. Yeah. Okay, great. So the first one, so out of college, the first idea I had is and I was listening to some online influencer about it. And basically the idea was why would you start a business if you can buy a business, right? If you have to create it, you got to start it, you got to get it going. So that was my first idea. Let's buy a business. So I bought a wood floor refinishing business. So kind of real estate related. And it didn't go well. It didn't go well at all. I just basically I overpaid for the business. It was basically a one-man show. So I didn't even buy a business. I just bought basically a job, refinishing wood floors. And the thing is with wood floors, once you get it done, you're good for 3, 5, 7 years. So all of his previous customers, they didn't need my help again. So it was not good there. So basically that went under pretty quickly. And so that was a failure. It was a lot of mistakes on my part. I should have kept it lean. I was I want to grow this thing. I want to make it, I want to double it quick. And I just overspent and didn't have the funds. So that was pretty.
So can I ask you how did you go about purchasing that business? Was it seller finance? Was it just cash outright, SBA loan? And then when you actually, the business didn't go your way, everything that you still owed on it, if you did owe on it, how did you take care of that?
I put a little bit of money down. I had some savings and inheritance, so I put that into it. But most of it was seller finance. I was trying to go the SBA route, but I think I can't remember what happened, but it wasn't going to happen. Something was missing where I couldn't get an SBA finance because I looked into that. So that's basically what happened. So it was seller finance. So when I stopped, kind of defaulted on the note, I just stopped paying the guy. And honestly, he never chased me. He never said anything. He just kind of dropped it. I think he was just happy to have someone buy the business. So maybe he was surprised that someone bought it, and then he moved on. He moved to a different state. And never even asked for it or never went after me. I was 20 at the time. I was 20. So, if a 20-year-old buys your business and fails, I don't know if you're going to chase them down. Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Where'd you go from there after that failure? Where did it lead?
Yeah, I tried a lot of things. Nothing really was that serious. Then I thought like, oh, okay, I didn't go big enough for the first one. So that's what I need to do. I need to buy bigger businesses, which I mean, there's some logic in that. There's some truth in that. So I was going after home healthcare. So the idea was like, it's called like a roll up. So you buy many businesses, you put them together and you can sell them. So you buy them at 3x, then you can sell them at 5x, 10x in the future. So that's the idea of a roll up. And it's a great way to get rich is what I thought. So that's what I did. So I started searching for home health companies and to purchase, and I would use SBA, I would use seller financing, and then I get like an investor if I need it to put in the down payment. Back then, there was a loophole with SBA where you didn't have to get any down payment if you found the right bank, and if you got enough seller financing, you didn't have to put a down payment. So I was like, okay, great. That loophole doesn't exist anymore. They closed it, but that was pretty much it. So basically just went out there, started looking for businesses. Luckily, I didn't find any. I had another friend who ended up buying 3 in total. And at first it was going great. And then like he had a lot of like financial issues and Corona hit, which hurt healthcare, especially. So he went bankrupt in that one. So that was my next business that I worked on. Yeah, but I learned a lot about finance, learned a lot about finance, like buying businesses and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Why home health?
So the idea was to go into like a fragmented industry, and one of the big industries that the guy recommended was healthcare. So I looked at like what's fragmented in healthcare, because the idea you have to have a lot of potential companies to pick out from. You need hundreds, thousands. If you have 4 companies and you talk to company 1 and they say, oh, we don't want to sell. Company 2 doesn't want to sell. Company 3 wants to sell, but for way too much. Like that doesn't work. So you need to find a fragmented industry basically. And that made sense for healthcare, home healthcare, where just the numbers worked and the numbers made sense. And we were able to buy it potentially. And yeah, it just made sense to follow that model there.
And then after that.
So wait, was there a failure in that, or was that was just the next?
Oh no, I just never did a deal basically, but I was full time at it for I guess like a year or 2, and basically what ended up happening, the friend of mine who did buy a business, I worked for him for a little bit, and then he had to get rid of me just because he was overspending. And I told him he was overspending, but that's a different story. So he was overspending, so he didn't have the money to pay me basically. And then I was a salesperson for him. And then I worked for another home health company. The idea was while I'm working for one of these companies, let me learn it, because I was brand new. I knew nothing about home health. I knew nothing about anything there, but I was trying to buy a company. So I was like, let me learn, get some experience. So jumped to another company, and eventually I realized like, hey, this is probably not a good idea. You're trying to buy a business with no experience, a lot of leverage, and like no money. That's just a recipe for disaster. Enough people told me that, and I realized it. At the end of that was a failure, I'd call, I suppose. And then at the end of that, I realized like, okay, well, what about real estate? So I got into real estate basically after that. I started the real estate journey.
Was there somebody specifically that you found or followed that kind of convinced you to go that way, or was there like an influencer that caught your eye that you decided to learn from?
For the real estate side of things, I basically talked to a friend of mine, friend/mentor. He recommended a guy named Chris Chico. And Chris Chico he used to teach, he still teaches like Facebook ads to get leads and get deals. And I thought that was the coolest thing. I was like, oh, wow, you can use Facebook to get potential properties. So that was the coolest thing to me. So initially I wanted to join like his mentorship, but I think it was like $3,000 a month every month. And I couldn't pay that. So that was way too much. So he did offer like, hey, I have a cold caller position open. It's commission only. I'll teach you everything. And if you bring anything for like a wholesale deal, then we'll split it. Well, it was going to be like, I'd get like 15% or 20%. I don't remember what the split was, but I get some percentage of whatever I bring in. So that's how I started to learn. I started to learn and teach. And he and I started, I was cold calling mostly Miami at first, and Miami didn't really work. That was 2018. It was super hot. It was such a hot market even back then. Even today, I imagine it's crazy. Basically, I'd call at 8 a.m. I'd be calling at 8 a.m. and call the seller like, hey, any interest in selling? They're like, no, you're the 5th person who's called me today. And it's like 8 a.m. So they were getting like lots and dozens of phone calls every day. So like Miami wasn't working. So we were doing that for a couple months. And then we realized like, okay, well, something's not working here, because a year or 2 before he'd been doing it and it was working. So something was off. And then I was like, hey, I'm in Gainesville, because I ended up moving to Gainesville, and I can explain that story. But I ended up moving to Gainesville. I'm like, hey, can I just do this in my area? Like, and it'll be my own separate thing. And like, I just want to use your software and use your stuff and use your, whatever you're using. He's like, yeah, that's fine. So then I started doing Gainesville, and it took off. Like, it was basically big market, small market, big market being Miami, super competitive, not going to happen. Gainesville, like people be like, oh, you're the first person who's ever called me about this property, or, oh, someone called me about this property like 6 months ago. So it was just a lot less saturated, so I can get my foot in the door. Got my first 2 wholesale deals, made $3,000 on the first one, $3,500 on the second one, and then started getting into flipping, and it just blossomed from there.
What were the? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
How fast did it take for you to get that wholesale deal?
It took a while. So I started with him June 2018. I closed the first one Halloween 2018. So June, July, August, September, October. So 5 months basically. And the first month or so was like learning cold calling. I guess the first 3 or 4 months was like the Miami focus, and that just wasn't working. And then I think once I started calling in Gainesville, maybe in 2 months or so, I got the first one closed. So it clicked pretty quickly after that.
And were you targeting a specific type of seller? Were you pulling specific lists? How are you going about that?
I think with him, we were in Miami. We were just doing, was it like deed lists, something like that? I can't remember the deed, like quick claim deed. I think we were just doing like a very broad list, because we tried like a very specific list. I think we tried like, tax delinquent, or we tried another list, and almost nobody picked up. So we had a list of 1,000. I would just sit there for the entire time, and nobody would pick up, just because again the list was so saturated. You have 100 investors calling you per day. You're not going to pick up. So that was the first list we did there. And then for Gainesville, I think I just did absentee. I didn't even do anything crazy. I just did a normal absentee. Even back then, I didn't get any of the targeting right. I just bought absentee. I didn't do like any sort of equity percentage. I didn't do like, oh, it was sold more than 10 years ago. Nothing like that. I was just like, oh, I just bought a list and went for it basically.
And was that your first introduction into real estate then?
Kind of, yeah. So my family does real estate, but it was more like a passive thing. It was more of a part-time thing for them. So I had experience from that. So I did help out with some like family properties when I was younger, and did one on my own actually when I was 18, but that was more like rental. It was more different. I always thought of that as a different avenue, different category.
Did your parents help you with that, with the capital it needed for that property when you were 18, or how did?
No, that was inheritance on that one. So I got lucky on that one. But okay. I basically lost it all. So I had it, and then I lost it all and spent it all with those businesses I told you I failed with. So like I had an advantage and lost it, and then I guess rebuilt it back eventually. So
when you did the first 2 wholesales, what carried you over into flipping property? What was the
motivation, or what?
What was the shift there that said, okay, I'm doing wholesale, I'm making money, but go into flipping?
It was 2 things. So on the second deal that I wholesaled, the person ended up flipping it. I think they made like 30, 40, 50,000 net, and they almost did nothing to it. I think they put like $7,000 into it. Like they did new carpet, did like a couple paint stuff, and like then they sold it. And I was like, what the hell? Like they barely did anything, and they're making this much. Yeah. And I barely made anything. And they even beat me up on price. That was the other thing. Like they really beat me up on price. I think we ended up selling it for like, I don't know, 112 or something. Don't quote me on that. And like it should have gone for 115, 120. But they were like, oh, I don't know if we're going to make money. This is a tight deal for us. We might not do it. I was like, what the, so that's what I was thinking. Like, why am I taking all this grief, and then they make a huge profit if I can just do it on my own? So that was the first thing. Second thing, there was another deal that came up, and I couldn't wholesale it. Like, especially back then, Gainesville and cash buyers, it wasn't really well established. It really isn't now, to be honest, but it wasn't really well established. So I talked to the cash investors I had, which was like 3 or 4 or 5, and they're like, oh, we don't think it's a good deal. I'm like, what the hell? I think it's a good deal. There's the numbers. I'm confident in the numbers. So what happened was like, I made a good connection with the seller, and like they needed it. They're in a different state. They inherited the property. The property had like hurricane damage, and like they were just sick of it. They wanted to sell it. So I was like, oh, I got to help these people out. Got to figure something out. So what I did, I instead of wholesaling, I found a money partner. So I found someone who wanted to flip it with me, and we'd split the profit at a certain percentage, at a certain like ratio. And like they would put in the money, I'd help run it, run the renovations, I'd help with everything, help sell it, and then we'd split it. And that was pretty much it. And then that deal went great. I think we made 28K. The split for me on that one was 1/3, 2/3. So I made 1/3. So I made about 9K. So for me going from 3K, 3.5K to 9K, that was a big jump. And then I haven't done a wholesale deal since then. I only did those two, and then if I find a good deal, I keep it for myself, and that's pretty much it. So I keep busy that way.
That partner that you found, did you specifically seek them out, or was that like an opportunity that presented itself, or did you just say, "Hey, I need to find somebody with money," and you went out and did it?
I went and found them. Yeah, I wish they would have came to me, but I had to go and find them. Yeah.
And how did you find them? Were you looking through Facebook groups or through networking at local meetups? Like, how did you find this person?
Just networking, just asking around, and finally found someone. So that was good.
Awesome. So after doing a couple flips, what led into the mentoring and teaching other people how to do it?
Yeah. So I was doing the flips, and I was doing flip after flip after flip, and people started to take notice. And once in a while, I would post like, "Hey, we bought this flip," and "Hey, we did this." And then people started to reach out like, "Hey, I want to learn how to do flipping as well. Looks like you're doing well. I want to learn." And I was like, "Okay." And at first, I was just doing it for free. I was just teaching people, but I quickly learned like when it comes to free stuff, like people don't value it. So a lot of the free advice I gave, like people didn't listen, or they didn't, I talk to them a month later and like, "Oh yeah, I haven't done anything with that." So I'm like, "Hey, this is kind of a waste of time if I'm just doing it for free." So I started charging. So I started charging people for it. The first student I sold, I charged him $1, and then I slowly went up with prices. So it's more than that nowadays, but that's pretty much it. So then I learned how to structure the program, learned what works and what doesn't work when it comes to teaching, and then just grew it from there. And then it makes sense, in my mind, it kind of overlaps, doing flipping and teaching it. It's almost the same thing. It's a little bit different things. So instead of two totally separate businesses, it's one kind of conjoined business with a little bit of extra stuff that I got to do. And then it's like a positive feedback loop. So if I do more flips, I post more, I get more students, I get more money, I can do more flips, and I can post more and get more students. So it just becomes like a nice feedback loop. That's been working.
And that first flip that you did, how long did it take you to complete it?
I think it took about 6 weeks for renovation. We listed it, and it was 6 weeks for renovation. Basically, let me talk about that, and then I'll finish the question. We were really tired because I was also helping out on the property, help with painting and clearing debris, and I didn't really help on the flooring. But basically, what happened, we were so exhausted with the property. Week 6, we're like, screw this, we're done. Let's just list it as is. So instead of painting the whole house, when you're painting the exterior of a house, you paint the whole house. We were just so lazy, we only did the bottom half. So we tried to match the color. So it was like a green house. We're like, okay, let's just do the bottom half, and maybe nobody will notice. And it's very noticeable. It was very noticeable that we only painted the bottom half. And it was just because we didn't want to get a ladder to do the top half. It was oh, that's too much. We're too tired. So we basically listed it as is. It took I think it was 2 or 3 weeks to get an offer, which we were kind of freaking out oh my God, it's been 2 weeks. But looking back, that's not a long time to wait for an offer. So that's pretty much it. So it was, I think, 6 weeks or so, 6 to 8 weeks, let's say, for renovation, 2 weeks to accept a contract, and then closing it took about a month. So we purchased it November 2018. I think we're done with renovation somewhere in December, and then it closed January or so. So it was a relatively quick deal, especially looking back on it. We skipped a lot of steps, which was very dumb, just like I mentioned, the painting. And then there's some stuff on the inspection report we skipped, and later we had to fix it or give it a repair credit for. So that's a good lesson for your listeners. Don't cut corners. Make sure you do it right the first time, because it's going to cost you more in the end if you try to skip it. That was pretty much it. Yeah, I mean, we learned from that. We don't do that anymore. We always paint the whole house typically, most of the time.
and besides those, besides not painting that house fully, what are some of the most common mistakes you have with renovating a property?
I think a lot of people over renovate. They're oh, I'll do granite countertops and I'll do this very fancy kitchen. And then the neighborhood just has laminate countertops and like that sort of thing. So you just stick to the comps, stick to what's selling. I think is really good. You renovate for the masses. You don't renovate for yourself. A lot of people are like, oh, I would do this and I want this touch and I want this finish. And that's what you want, but no, that's not what the typical home buyer would want. So that's another mistake. Just like I said, don't cut corners. That's another big thing. Just focus. I think that's plenty. That's a lot to digest.
Have you lost any money on any flips?
I have, yeah. I've done, I counted it today actually. So I've sold 89. So I'm almost at the 100 mark, and I have a lot more that I own and are under contract. I'll sell soon. So I've sold 89. I think I lost on 5 or so, something like that. Yeah. Wow. And it was just dumb mistakes. The biggest thing, the biggest thing was it was just arrogance. So on like one property, the hard money lender did like did an appraisal or whatever process they do, and they're like, oh, it can sell for 360. And I'm like, no, it's going to sell for 400. And it ended up selling for a little bit less because of it just sat on the market for too long and then became a stale listing, got less interest, got lowball, and I had to accept it. But it was just arrogance, and it was, didn't make any sense. And yeah. And there was another one. Again, appraiser said, oh, it's probably worth 220. I'm like, no, it's worth 350. And I lost a lot of money on that one. And the appraiser was right in the end. I think I sold it for 230 maybe in the end. Because there wasn't like good comps, and yeah, I just missed a couple things on that. So it's a lot of like, that's the biggest thing, especially once you start to see any sort of success. I guess in any business and in life, you just get arrogant and you're like, oh, well, I can, I'm going to prove them wrong.
Yeah. And for the listeners, are you doing any of the rehab work, or how are you finding your subcontractors to do the work for you? Or how did you find the main contractor that does it all?
Yeah, it's subcontractor. So I have a project manager, and I pay her to help manage the project. So she pays the painters and gets the painters, flooring, but she splits it up. And then we use subcontractors for everything. So I haven't done any work myself for at least 2 years, which I like.
Yeah. So your project manager is kind of acting as a GC?
Basically, yeah. I mean, she can't pull permits, honestly, or
right.
Obviously. But all like the roofer can pull the permit, or, if there's an HVAC and we decide to pull a permit for that, they can pull a permit, but that's pretty much it. Yeah. So it's, but she, like as a GC is a good way to put it.
What's kind of like your sweet spot? What are you looking for when you buy a house? Do you have a specific margin you're trying to clear? Do you have a specific dollar amount? And like, what type of properties are you flipping? Are you flipping entry-level homes? Are you flipping luxury? What are you working with there?
So I'll answer the last question first. So especially with like the interest rate changes and all that stuff, we're really focusing on affordable housing, like starter homes. So we're at like especially for this market, like 300 ARV and below, maybe a little bit higher, but we're just mostly focusing on like those lower end homes. I did a house where it was 660, or I was supposed to sell it for 600, excuse me. And we listed it, and that's when like the interest rates were starting to shift, and mortgage rates were rising, and houses were getting more expensive in terms of affordability. And I think we ended up selling it for 550 or 560. So it's like those really higher end luxury $1 million mansions that are really getting hammered nowadays when it comes to prices and all that. So I really focus on the lower end stuff, and that's been serving me well. And then we do single family houses, condos, townhomes. We do mobile homes too. And a lot of people do those, but especially being in Florida, like that's a pretty somewhat popular thing to do. So we've had a lot of success with that. And what else? Yeah. And then in terms of sweet spot, we like 70% rule or 75% rule typically for our deals. And if we can make, $30K on a deal, that's good. We'll move forward on it typically. If we can make $20K and it's almost no work, we just clean it and list it, and we're confident in the numbers, but we'll do that. We're pretty open.
Could you break down that 70% rule real quick for the listeners that don't know what that is?
Sure. So the idea is like whenever you're at a property, you need a quick rule of thumb. Like you can't be doing complex math. Like, oh, what about the property insurance costs? What about, the hard money costs? What about all these different costs? So you need like a quick rule of thumb, like, oh, within 30 seconds, you can know if it's a deal or not. So that's where the 70% rule comes in. So what it is, it's like you take your ARV, which is after repaired value. So that's what you can sell the property for. Once it's all fixed up, once you're done with it, what can you sell it for? times that by 0.7 or 0.75, whatever rule you're using. And then you subtract your repairs. So a quick example, let's say you can sell it for 100. That's your ARV. Your repairs are 10. So that's 100 times 0.7 minus 10. So that's 60. So that's 60 is your max offer. That's like your max purchase price. If you're offered that property for 80, don't buy it. It's not a good deal. If you're offered that property for 50, that's a good deal. Go for it. But it's a quick rule of thumb, so you can do that quickly in your head, or you can do it quickly on a calculator just to see if it's a deal or not, and then be able to move forward. Especially in real estate, like you got to be quick. Like if you take, give me a week and I'll get back to you. Like the deal's gone, it's moved. You got to be quick with these types of things.
And how has it been finding money for these projects when you didn't have the money to do the rehab and the purchase and all that type of stuff? Where are you finding your money?
I think just various sources. Again, money partners, self-funding, hard money. I'd say the money is the easy part as long as you get the deals. There's a lot of people searching for deals, and there's a lot of money out there chasing too few deals. So I think that's pretty much it. So there's a lot of people who have money on the side who want to put it to work. So as long as you have a good deal and there's a good profit margin, you can put it together to make it happen.
Got it.
For somebody that's just getting started, what would you say is more important to find first, the money or the deal?
The deal. Yeah. That's what I teach the students to, like, get the deal, like the money will follow. Like get under contract, and then it's gonna happen.
Right. Yeah. If you have a good deal, you shouldn't have a hard time finding money for it. Otherwise, you don't have a good deal.
Yeah. And that's a good way to see it. Like if you're having trouble raising money for it, it's not a good deal.
Right.
It's a good indication, a good signal.
What's your main sources of getting your deals consistently each week, or
Yeah, a lot of wholesalers. I'd say 50% at least come from wholesalers. I like to build good relationships. Like be easy to work with is very important. Don't try to like screw them over a little bit of money. And that's the experience I had as a wholesaler, because I was a wholesaler for a little bit, and I didn't like to get nickeled and dimed. Like they'd be beating me up over $1,000, and that $1,000 meant something to me, but to them it was a rounding error. So don't beat them up. Be easy to work with. Give them quick answers. If it's a no, give them a quick no. If it's a yes, give them a quick yes. Stick to your word. Basically, like if you say, hey, I'm going to close on this date, try to close on that date, maybe the day after, worst case. Part of sticking to your word, like don't back out the last day. Be like the day before, like, hey, I actually don't want to buy this thing. See ya. So just sticking to your word is very important. So just build relationships that way. I've seen that have a lot of success with wholesalers. I also get not a lot, but I get deals for my website. I just have a website, simple carrot website, and then people fill out the form. I reach out to them. Those are some of the best leads. Those are some of the better leads for sure. Because they're like more motivated. Maybe they're not talking to people, but they're reaching out to you. So that's inbound. That's someone saying like, hey, I want to reach out to this person because I want to sell. So that's working. That's honestly filled up my, I'm set to do maybe 30 this year, 40 this year. That's set to, that's filled me up in terms of deals. I did have cold calling going for a while. I just turned that off like last week just because I have plenty. Like I don't need any more.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm not used to people saying like, oh no, I've got plenty of deals. I don't need to do this anymore. It's
okay.
Great.
It's a unique position. I don't know. I used to think like, oh, maybe it's just because I'm lucky. I think there's a part of that, but I think it's just because I help and I try to build good relationships with the wholesalers. I go above and beyond for them too. Like sometimes I'm the one at the property taking the pictures for them. Like they haven't seen the place and I'm there. And then I run our ARV for them. I run like renovation budgets for them. So like I try to make it as easy as possible. I bought for one of the wholesalers, they send me quite a bit. We do like 5-10 deals a year. So I sent him a steak gift card, like an Outback Steakhouse gift card for $200, so he can take out his entire team. So it's like little stuff like that adds up. And then again, just be easy to work with. I think overall makes life a lot easier.
And are most of the deals you're doing there in Gainesville area? Are you local mostly?
It's mostly local, so it's Alachua County, and then maybe we go a little bit outside of that, depending on what's going on. But that's pretty much it. I like the local. Like I could do virtual, but I just like local because it's within an hour driving distance. If I need to check it out, I can check it out, and I keep it busy that way.
And have you mainly fix and flip? Have you kept anything as any type of rental, short term or long term or anything like that?
I did rentals last year. I was following like the Burr method, so buy, renovate, rent, refinance. And again, I got hit by the changing interest rates. Like I was running my numbers. I was going to get like an investor loan and refinance it out, like a 30-year fix, like 5%. I was like, okay, cool. And if I do that, I'm going to cash flow this much. I'm like, okay, cool. I ran the numbers. By the time I got around to refinancing it, it was more like 7%, 8%. And what was like a 300 a month cash flow became like $80 a month or $100 a month because of like the changing interest rates and the changing mortgage costs. So I got stuck with some properties there that just became losers because of that. So I had 5 rentals last year. I'm down to 2. I'm still trying to sell those 2. I'm all in on flipping. I'm really going all in flipping. It's working. It's where I've made the most of my money. So I just want to continue doing that. I like that you're in, you're out, move on, next deal, and you forget about the house and just go to the next one.
And how much longer are you going to be?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, with rentals, like it's a good strategy. It just depends on your goals. It doesn't fit my goals right now. I'm still younger, so like for me if I can get active returns that are higher, like active income returns that are higher than passive returns, like I'm just going to do active returns because I'm not going to retire. My plan isn't to retire for a long time, so let me just do the active stuff if it's bringing in more.
Yeah. And when do you think you'll retire from flipping? And what will be the next? When would be the next strategy? I mean,
I like this. I think this is good.
Or...
I think a lot of people go from like wholesaling to flipping to rentals to hard money. So I've kind of done that a little bit. So I do the mentorship and I teach students, but what I've started offering like as of a month ago, I'm offering 100% funding for students. So it's like, hey, if you bring me a deal, we'll fund it and we'll split the profit 50-50. And people have really liked that. So I'm kind of sitting on the spectrum where I'm doing flips, but I'm also kind of a hard money lender. It's more like I'm putting in the down payment or I'm putting in some funds. Me and my partners are putting in some funds to make it happen. So that's pretty much it. I just plan to keep on doing this. I like this. I don't plan to make any changes. Before, it used to be, especially when I was in healthcare, it's like, okay, let me make my money and then get into real estate. Like it was always, okay, let me do this. And then I want to really do this. And I'm just where I want to be. So it's not like, okay, I want to do this thing next. It's like, no, this is what I want to do. So I'm not even thinking of the next thing because I feel like this is it.
And can your students bring deals from anywhere in the 50 states and you'll fund those? And
yeah, we do nationwide for that. We've seen a lot of like southeast, Midwest type of stuff, a little bit northeast. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And as a mentor with any of your students, have you had any like really big success stories? Because I know there's times with teachers, like music teachers, that have students that just figure something out and then they just take off and run with it. Have you had any like big success stories with any of your students?
I mean, Patrick's a success story. He was a student of mine. He is a student of mine. He's successful. He's done many flips and done really well for himself. So I have a lot of students. I have a lot of students who have been successful. Some like it clicks for them and they're off doing multiple 6 figures. Some do a flip and they're like, yeah, I don't know if this is for me. They move on. That's totally fine. I've had a lot of successes. No one's overtook me. And that's not like, just no one's overtook me. It just takes time to build this out, especially for flipping. It's like capital intensive. So, and then the other thing, like I don't recommend other people grow as fast as I did, because I did 2 flips the first year, then 8, then 20. Last year was 30. This year will be maybe 30 or 40. Like it's a bitch and a half to grow that fast because it's very capital intensive. You're always short on money. You're always waiting for like the next deal to like sell because they're like, oh, finally I have money. So I don't recommend that for people. I'd grow it slowly, like do 2 your first year, or do like 1 your first year, then 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, and then maybe like just do 10 a year and keep it more like a lifestyle thing. There's a lot of like growing pains and like growing stress that you don't need. Like at a certain point, it's just like extra money and it doesn't really do you much. But yeah, so I don't recommend people do that. But
yeah, when I first started with Brian, we got the first one, right? And then we got the second one. You told us don't do it, but we still got it. Mm-hmm. And then there was a third one we got, but we netted, over 45.
That's good. Wow, awesome.
Yeah, so
great work. Yeah,
the money was just there that we saw it, and we were just like, we got to do it, we got to buy it. So.
It's a balance, right? Because you don't want to do too much, and that's the mistake I made, where like I did flip number 1, and I learned so much on flip number 1, and I could have applied that to flip number 2, 3, 4, whatever. But because you do so many at the same time, you can't like apply that learning to the next one. So let's say like on flip number 1, I made a $5,000 mistake. So on flip number 2, 3, and 4, I made that same 5K mistake. So it's like 5K, 5K, 5K. So it's a 15K thing. So there's some value in taking it slow and growing it slowly as well.
Yeah, in our last flip, we made a 40K mistake.
Oh shit! Was it electrical you're telling me about?
Electrical.
Okay.
It was because the inspector didn't fully do a full inspection of the property. They didn't go into the attic and see that all the wires were cut up in the attic.
Yikes!
And that cost us dearly.
Cost us a lot, yeah.
Especially because we're virtual. You're more local, so that's another thing that really screwed us up as well.
I wouldn't have checked the attic though. Like I don't check the attics for these properties,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there was people trying to get the copper and all that type of stuff. They even cut the electrical box from the ground to the electrical box. They cut all the wires there too. So
that's too bad. Yeah, that's sometimes you just get unlucky. Like on a house recently, like we had our HVAC stolen. Like someone just stole it. Like it was new for 2 years, so it's been there for 2 years. Like the week after we bought it, someone stole it. And then we had to replace it. And that was $7,000. And so you just sometimes get unlucky, and that sucks. Yeah. I had a house burned down. It was a rental. It didn't burn down fully, but it had fire damage, and that was a huge pain in the ass to fix. Like getting the insurance and contractors to fix it and all that stuff was just terrible. But we got it done. We ended up breaking even on that one. But yeah, so you just sometimes get unlucky. And I if there's a 1% chance that something happens, and you do 100 deals, that thing is going to happen. And you can't get away from it. That's part of the downside of volume. But hopefully your wins outweigh your losses. And I think they have in your case, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. We didn't go negative on that last flip. We made just 15K, but
15?
Yeah, just 15. Yeah.
That's still really good. That's awesome. Okay.
I mean,
cool.
For 6-7 months that we had it, because it was
okay.
Property,
I know you want to make more, but like, when you lose money on a flip, you'll be like, oh my God, I'm making a profit. Oh, I made a profit. You lose money on a flip, and then it really stings. You're like, oh, I did all that work and I lost money.
I know one guy in our Facebook group, he lost $30,000, and he had to go back to his 9-to-5 just to pay off the $30,000 that he lost.
I think I know who you're talking about. I told him not to buy it too. That's the thing. Like, hey, this isn't a good deal. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, because you guys almost funded that one. I remember that one. And I told him don't buy it. Like these numbers don't work. And he's like, no, I'm going to do it. And it's like, why do you have me? Why am I your mentor if you don't listen?
Yeah.
How frustrating is that as a mentor when you're trying to give people are paying you for good advice and they won't listen to you? I've had some experience with that with marketing consulting, and I'm trying to give people good advice that I know works, and they just are like, no, I'm going to do my own thing anyway, and then they lose, and you're like, what did I do wrong?
Pretty much, yeah. It's the bulk of the time too. Like it's the majority. Like it's sometimes people listen and that's good, but mostly they don't. I don't know why that is. I was the same way too, so I can't blame them. But I think part of it, like it's almost good that they go through the pain, because then they wake up and they realize like, oh, okay, maybe he was right. If they do the wrong thing, get the wrong results, they're like, oh, okay, let me not do the wrong thing next time. So there's some value in that. But yeah, I guess I think I used to be more frustrated about it. Now I just accept it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to change. Just like with marketing, like there's numbers like this is how many leads I get and how much they cost. This is how much it costs to get a sale. Like this is how many leads it takes to get a sale. So like you kind of have that funnel and that kind of numbers thinking when it comes to like marketing and sales in general. And this is the same thing I've adopted for like student success. I'm like, if I bring on 10 students, then X are not going to do anything with it, and that's on them. And Y are going to actually get their first deal. And then, Z are actually going to, whatever. So that's how I've just come to look at it. And it fits pretty nicely into those numbers. So that's all I can do.
How old are you now, Victor?
I'm 29.
29. And what about your family life? Do you have a girlfriend? You have a wife? Are you going to have a kid?
Eventually, that's the plan. Just want to settle down, and yeah.
But throughout this whole time, you really have just been focused on the real estate, really not anything else, right? Because every time I've seen you, I've never seen a girlfriend or some special.
I mean, that's on purpose, but yeah. Like last year, I was just dating around, and now it's pretty much and then having fun. This year, I'm a lot more serious. Like I want to settle down. So There's one girl I'm dating. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, just focused on that. And then like the mentorship and the flipping, it takes time. So it's not like I have a ton of time to be spending on that sort of stuff. But
Okay.
yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah.
Yeah, because like sometimes being an entrepreneur, all that time it takes to actually do that type of path, you lose, those type of people. The girlfriends sometimes don't get enough attention.
Yeah.
They're out the door. I've had that happen to me. So
That can definitely happen, especially like 2020, 2021. And then I got back into it 2022. But those 2 years, it was Corona, so it was like downtime. Everyone was quarantined anyways, and people weren't really going out. And that's when I was really focused on the business. I was like really working and like trying to grow the flips, trying to grow the courses. And then I got away from that eventually. I realized I wanted to make money so I can do more deals. And I was like really killing myself and stressing myself out to do that. And I realized like, that doesn't make sense. Let me just slow it down. If my goal is more deals, let me just slow it down and do more deals, and I'll eventually get there. Like, it just didn't make sense, like why I was pursuing it. It wasn't like, I want status, or I want this. It was more like I just want to do more.
yeah.
And is that what your mindset still is? You're just trying to basically improve upon what you did the previous year, or do you have any other specific targets that you're trying to reach?
That's pretty much it. Just do better each time. I think that like slow compounding growth is really powerful. Like slow improvement over time is really good. I like the 30 a year flip mark. Like I don't plan to grow more. We might do more this year just on accident, but yeah, just that's pretty much it. Just continue. That's a good pace, and then I'll spend the rest of my time on the mentorship and trying to help folks out there.
And just on the flipping side, what kind of numbers are we seeing as far as you're making for 30 flips in a year? Like what kind of return?
Yeah, I think it's like 35K net is the average. So it depends on the deal.
Okay.
Yeah, so it depends on the deal, but that doesn't go all in my pocket. I'm still, again, because I grew so fast, I have a lot of partners and stuff. Like, yes, I do some deals on my own, but I also have some partners as well. So it's not like that all goes into my pocket.
That's cool. You seem to be really focused on just doing the flipping. It seems like some of the other guests we've had, they've got 10 different things going on at once, and you seem to be very focused. Where does that come from? Have you always been like that? Have you always been able to like lock down and focus on one thing and see it all the way through? Is that something that you've built over time?
I think I built that over time. I think I did it just trial and error, because when I was younger, I was like, let me do 10 projects at once. And then like the 10 projects would go nowhere. Like I would just be spinning my wheels. I'd be pushing in different directions and just stay in the same place. So I realized like, this is dumb. This isn't effective. So let me just focus on one thing. And when I focused on one thing, like something happened and the ball moved, and the needle moved as well. And I just figured like, okay, well, at a certain, let me just focus on one thing. And then for the flips, like it feels like every time I've deviated from that, I've gotten penalized. Like I mentioned the rentals thing, like I got penalized. Like the flips were going awesome, and then I started doing some rentals, and like that took a huge hit, and like the rentals didn't go that well. And I'm like, I can go through the process of like really optimizing the rentals and do really well there, but it's like that doesn't make sense. I tried Airbnb. I did like one little Airbnb property, and like that didn't go as planned. They went decent, but it didn't go that great compared to the flips. So I was like, anytime I've strayed away from that, like I've gotten hit. I've gotten, penalized somehow. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to do that. Let me just focus on what's working. And then that's been going good. And I plan to continue that.
What do you think went wrong with your Airbnb?
I think Airbnb is kind of slowing down, especially for like Gainesville. This is probably nationwide too. Like the supply is growing really quickly. Like demand's kind of flat or up a little bit, but like supply here, it's growing 9%, not per year, but per quarter. So last year there's 800 Airbnb properties. Now there's 1,200, and that's continuing to grow. So like there's just so much more selection. So it's almost like a commodity. Like I just need a place to stay. I just need a house. So it's not what it used to be. I think that's part of it. And then with the Airbnb I had, and this is on me, like it wasn't that unique. It was just like a nice place. So it did pretty well, but I don't know. It just didn't do as well as I wanted. And again, back then I was focused like, let me do passive income. And then I realized like, okay, why am I pursuing passive income if I can get better active income returns, or if I can, if I don't plan to be passive for a long time. So it just didn't make sense for my investment goals.
And what do you think sets apart a successful flipper versus a flipper that's struggling?
Just probably understanding the numbers, just how the numbers work of everything. So like on the front end, like let's say you're trying to get a deal, like a lot of people get caught up, like they make an offer, get rejected, make an offer, get rejected. Then they think, oh, maybe not, maybe flipping or maybe real estate isn't for me. And then for me, on average, it's like 1 out of 15 offers becomes a deal. So just knowing that makes life a lot easier. So you make your 15 offers, you're on number 7, you get rejected. You're like, oh, I got 8 more to go, before I get something. And it might hit number 7, it might hit number 12, number 17, whatever. So I think knowing that number up front is really helpful. Knowing the numbers for a flip, like you don't fall in love with the house, you fall in love with like the numbers of the house. It's like, hey, I can buy it for this much, I can put in this much, and I can sell it for this much. And it really is for flippers, it's 3 numbers. Like, what are you buying it for? What do you need to repair it for? What can you sell it for? And that's it. Like, if you give me those 3 numbers, I can tell you if it's a good deal or not, assuming those numbers are correct. And that's it. It's the numbers. It's not like, oh, it's a great neighborhood, it's a great school district, it's great this, it's great that. Like if the numbers aren't there, I've flipped in like crazy places. And I flipped like mobile homes, and not a lot of people flip mobile homes because like they don't know the numbers. They don't know like, oh, I can sell it for this much.
How much more easier is it to do a mobile home than a house?
It's a little easier. I think it's easier to find deals for sure because there's less competition. It's harder to get them financed because there's no hard money lender that I know that does mobile homes. You can get like a private money lender. I've been doing those just with money partners. So we fund it with someone, split the profits. It's a little harder to sell it. There's a slightly smaller buyer pool. So I guess in the end, it kind of evens out. Repairs, some of them are a little easier, some are a little tougher. Like foundation issues on a mobile home are super easy to fix. Like you just kind of fix it. It's like a car. If your car's messed up, you just fix it. With the house, you got to like jack it up and you got to like put helical piers, and it's a thing. Yeah. So mobile homes are good. And then I know we say like mobile homes, it's not really mobile. Like it's attached to the ground. It's not like you can hitch it to a truck and take it.
Are you doing homes that are on their own land or homes in parks or both?
Only land. Yeah. I haven't done a mobile home park deal or a mobile home in a park. It's because you don't own land. Like you're basically just flipping a car at that point. So I've never done that. It's on land. It has acreage. It's half an acre, 5 acres, whatever. And that's been good.
What's your favorite type of project to work on? Your favorite type of flip to do?
Probably like the cosmetic stuff, like paint, flooring, list it stuff. So like something super easy. That's pretty good. It's cool to see the transformations, but like I've seen enough of the transformations where it's like I don't need to really see anymore. I do need to see more. Like I like it, but it's not like I'm still astounded by it. I don't know how to word it, but it's not like as magical as it used to be. And like I care about the profit. I care about the profit on the deal. So maybe I should answer that way. Like whatever has the highest profit, that's my favorite deal. Highest profit, least work. If I can just sign a check with 100,000, I'll take it.
Yeah, I feel like people are afraid to say that sometime, but it's like the whole reason we do this is for money. Like,
yeah,
if I didn't want to make money, I'd be a teacher. Like it's you have to want to make the money, and the numbers all have to make sense.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the net profit's nice, and I think I was definitely spoiled in like 2021 and 2020 just because like the numbers were crazy. Like, hey, we want to buy at this, and then like, oh, it goes over asking by 40,000. So you do get spoiled by that. And it's not so much like that nowadays, but yeah.
Do you ever find any deals on market with
very
rarely agents?
My last one was 2021, my last MLS deal. So I did one MLS deal 2020, one MLS deal 2021. It's just so saturated. It's so competitive. Like it gets bid up so much. I don't know how the people make money on it. I don't know if they're flipping it. Maybe they're not. Maybe they keep it as a rental, and maybe they do the work themselves. So you're competing with someone who's going to buy it cash, do the work themselves, and keep it. So like their numbers versus your numbers are totally different. I haven't done one of those for a while. It's all off market stuff.
And the flips, are you selling them on market then? Listing them on market?
Yes. Yeah. So we sell it on market for sure. Yeah, we have to. That's where you get the best pricing. Everyone sees it. It's public. Anyone who's interested, if you're in California looking for houses here, you can see it. And that's what you want. You want it as public as possible. You want as many buyers bidding on it as possible to get the highest price.
But you're
Do
not
you
doing.
ever? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Well, you're not doing it with a realtor. You're doing it with that special way that you do it, huh?
I do. So I got my license a year or two ago, and I realized like it wasn't necessary. So I just listed a flat fee, like it's like flat fee MLS listing service, and they have them nationwide, but it's per state. So that's how I list it. So it's for me, it's $175 to list it. They just put on MLS. It goes on Zillow, MLS, Realtor.com. It goes on all the websites. It goes everywhere. But then we handle the showings, we handle the offers, we handle everything A to Z, and that's pretty much it. But you save the 3%. So you save the 3% seller's agent. So you still get a buyer's agent typically. You give them if they're 3% or whatever. So I did the math, I think a month ago, and I saved $455,000 by listing it myself. So almost $500,000 just by listing it myself instead of using a realtor.
That's incredible. I can't wrap my head around that. How many deals? Well,
you
said 89 deals you've sold.
I'll find it one of these days. I don't know where that money went. It's another deal, I guess. But yeah.
So where can our followers get a hold of you or follow you if they want to learn how to flip? Are you taking new students? How does that work?
I am taking new students, as mentioned. So I mentor people A to Z, how to find the deal, how to run your numbers, how to get the financing. I'll even fund it 100% for you. Then we'll split the profit. So that's pretty enticing. I have a Facebook group is the best way to reach out to me, 6-Figure House Flipper, or you can find me just Viktor Jiracek on Facebook, and then reach out, shoot me a message, and that's pretty much it. That's the best way to reach out.
Okay.
All right. And do you have any specific advice to somebody that's just starting out?
I think there's a lot of value in just getting started. Like, I had a mentor who told me to get started like 7 years ago, I guess now 8 years ago. And I wish I got started then because it has been exponential, right? Like I said, 2, 8, 20, whatever. And I got started 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So who knows where I would have been today if I had got started back then. So like it is exponential. So you have to look at it like that. So just getting started today, there's a lot of value in that. So I would just, any way you can get started, anything you can do, get in the game, even if you do a house hack or you do like a rental or you do a wholesale deal, or even if you go to like a RIA, REIA meeting, like a real estate investor meeting locally, there's a lot of value in that. So I recommend just do something, get started. It's going to snowball and you'll be surprised where you are 5 years from now. Like I've been surprised.
Yeah. Take action and make mistakes.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Viktor. I appreciate you coming on and giving us the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.